Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me today are Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells. We each have more than 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we take the 5 most popular stories on our websites and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at IN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. Also, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube at IN Magazine to make sure you get a notification when we go live, and you can join us when we're live. How you doing this week, Anna?
Good. I like it when we do these late in the day because as the day goes on, I just get increasingly more disheveled.
Oh, good. That's good. I also apologize. I listened to last week's episode and definitely went to Jeff and not you at the intro. Just like, Jeff, how you doing? And that was enough to be like, all right, let's just get this rolling.
And then like a big tear.
Yeah.
Like just rolled
She
down
was
my
talking
face.
about it all week.
Oh,
Yeah.
Couldn't get it off my mind.
Yeah. Jeff, are you feeling sunnier this week?
Sunnier?
Sunnier.
I'd say sunnier.
Okay.
Maybe more pleasant.
Okay, maybe the cloud's just not as dark.
Sure.
Maybe it's darker. All right. Before we get started, we have a word from our sponsor.
Manufacturers are facing extraordinary challenges today. With labor shortages, supply chain disruptions, and a changing workforce, complex industrial technology doesn't cut it on the front line. What's needed is a new way of working that will not only meet throughput goals, but change the shop floor culture to one of winning, where every worker feels they play a part in achieving the company's goals for success. What's needed is Red Zone, the connected workforce solution.
And we're back. And before we get started with our first story this week, just remember that Red Zone's connected workforce software enables manufacturers to empower frontline teams in production, maintenance, and quality to contribute their full potential and achieve company goals around productivity and throughput. Red Zone's software enables manufacturers, big and small, to boost their plant's productivity, increase employee engagement, and lower turnover. Jeff, how are you doing this week? I didn't ask.
Sunny.
All right, that's great. Our first story this week, quiet quitting, the latest trend that no one's happy about. Quiet quitting has created a conversation about workers' rights and economic stability. People are angry on all sides of this argument. Quiet quitting describes a change in employee mindset, rejecting traditional employment values like the need to give 110%, work your way up the corporate ladder, or be loyal to the company. Quiet quitters don't do anything outside of their job description. They set clear boundaries with management and coworkers and opt out of non-essential work outside of regular working hours. Some say it's protecting personal mental health and preventing burnout. Others say it's defiance, typically by millennials. Is it necessary? Is it inevitable? And Anna, is it new?
Well, I'll tell you what, the term is new, and I'm already completely over this term. We had a lot of comments on our website about this story. I think a lot of people ignored some of the key points that the article makes, which I think points out that the term quiet quitting is a straw man, and that it's just this unfortunate viral term that is applied to this phenomenon that, in my opinion, deserves our attention. But it's not people quitting. It's not like people just sitting around at their desk doing nothing. It's not about laziness. So the line I thought we should focus on here is where it says people are dialing back their emotional investment in their careers and instead move in a more transactional way, where they do the work that they're paid for, no more, no less. Okay, so in my opinion, I think that businesses and company leaders were handed an opportunity at the start of the pandemic, some of whom used that wisely and some didn't. So they could have chosen to display characteristics of flexibility, patience, understanding, build trust and loyalty amongst their employees. That was the experience I think that we were fortunate enough to have. You know, get your work done, no one's looking over your shoulder. You know, my kids were home with me for more than a year. You're trying to like school your kids from home. Like, that was ridiculous. I was squeezing in work when I could, and our company leaders basically said, do what you need to do. it was an honor system.
Yeah.
We did it. I think I came through that knowing that the company and I are in this together.
Right.
Like, I think that was more like, that was like a strengthening scenario, the outcome of that. I know a lot of people who did not have a similar experience. People who felt like they were on a knife's edge like the entire time, that they were expected to like put their health at risk to do their job.
Right.
So then as they're coming out of that and they're expected to be putting in these long hours, maybe this unpaid overtime, the result of this is people thinking stuff like, well, maybe they don't care about me. Why am I doing this? Like, maybe this company doesn't care about me. And I think that's maybe why we're seeing so many more actual quits. And if I were a company leader, I would be more focused on those, honestly. Not about this boundary setting concept that has this very stupid viral name. Because I would wager to guess that quiet quitting is, like you said, probably not new.
Right.
It's probably very hard to assess and identify. So that leads me to believe that maybe there's a lot of hype around it as well. And if it is taking place, like, maybe be grateful for the fact that you do have people that are there and are doing their jobs. Like, I don't think it's about the bare minimum. I think it's about like worker leverage being at its highest, as we've discussed in the past, and people thinking like, hey, I know what I'm worth, and this is what I'm willing to put forth for this.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is about employee buy-in. And I mean, does quiet quitting all come down to whatever that first TikTok video was? Because who knows who made it and said quiet quitting, and now it is this rallying point.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, where's the data on this?
Oh, and I bet it is just a dream for bad managers out there that see somebody, like, they're the, if you got time to lean, you got time to cleaners. Where they're just like, what are you doing over there, Ranky? Oh, you're a quiet quitter, aren't you? I mean, Jeff
already quiet quit the podcast. He has not said a single word about this.
Jeff, I mean, we're talking about employee empowerment here, a better work-life balance. What is this, France?
What? Wow.
I just like whenever we start talking about, Americans wanting a better work-life balance, it's just like, we'll move to Europe.
Okay.
Who is like
I'm
that?
not familiar with these references, but I'm really
'em.
glad that
I'll
we
get
did
one,
do.
yeah.
I'm just going to talk over you.
Yeah, that's
Is that okay
good.
now?
Yeah, that's
we
good.
do that now.
Get after it.
I'm glad we did this story early so I can get my old man persona up and running here quickly.
Roll your
because this is a ridiculous. This whole topic. This has been going on forever. Anybody who's managed anybody, anytime, anywhere has seen this.
Yeah.
You get somebody in a role and you can tell they're just there. Pick your cliche. They're passing time. They're just doing what they have to do to get by, biding their time, whatever. We've all seen these employees that really aren't that vested, don't care, they want to get paid and go home.
Yeah,
That's
they're
what
9 to
doing.
5ers.
They're just just checking in, checking out. So to put this whole, is it a movement? I don't know, this catchphrase, whatever you want to say behind
buzzword.
it is just really ridiculous, because what we should be focusing on, getting back to a lot of what Anna was talking about, is the workforce. Again, it's evolving, it's changing. Okay, so if you see these individuals in place and it's harming your business, now in a lot of cases when I've experienced this, we've seen these individuals and be like, I'd really love to get more out of this individual. I know there's more there. It's not going to happen. So I can go one of two routes. We can coast, which is kind of the easy way to do it, to be real honest, or you can find a way to get this individual removed from your company, which is not fun. It's painstaking. It takes a ton of documentation and everything else, and it's not always worth it. So you kind of let this happen and you let the situation play out. Now, again, you know who that is, and there's just a couple. Those are the ways that you typically deal with it, and I just don't think it's new. But again, getting back to how the workforce is starting to evolve and change, you can also do things to try to create an environment that maybe that person does want to get engaged in, or the person after them wants to get engaged in.
Right.
So you can always work to improve the dynamic and pay more attention to it. In manufacturing, that is a new thing. Working in an office environment, that's a little bit different. It's easier to create a lot of that esprit de corps and everything else. The manufacturing floor, it's something that needs to take on a greater point of emphasis and put more deliberate energy into if you want to change.
No, any company that has been successful leverages employee buy-in to retain top talent. And I mean, that's something that I've seen on an anecdotal level in the manufacturing industry, where Jeff, actually, you brought up a good point, where they're not necessarily looking for that buy-in from their number ones and twos, but they're looking who's willing to buy in, who's a little bit lower on the chain, but hungry for a little bit more. I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with wanting to have a better work-life balance, or as the article put it, acting your wage, which I'm troubled with that saying, but I get it.
Sure.
Well, I think there's a little bit too of this is sort of how, as anybody moves up in their career, there's a filtering process, and the individuals who go above and beyond, they move up more quickly, especially like in the careers that we got into. Coming out of school, it was brutal in terms of pay and the limited opportunities you had. So when you got in there, you could, again, pretty quickly identify those who were basically, all right, he told me to write this up, so I'm going to cut and paste some copy and throw it up on the website, and that's what I was asked to do.
Yeah.
The ones that went beyond that stood out. They were paid more quickly. They were elevated. They were given more opportunities and responsibilities. The other thing, too, and you wonder how this is going to play long term, we've all gotten calls for reference checks.
Oh,
when
yeah.
people try to move on. And it gets real awkward when they're talking about somebody say, well, you know what? They were definitely here.
Yeah.
They showed up.
Yeah.
And they did what they were asked to do.
Yeah. No, I know that that reference dance. They were here every day and did everything I asked them to.
Yeah.
Et cetera. But I mean, that's why I kind of kicked this off by saying, is it new or just the term? Because I feel like ever since the first person was employed, this is how it's been going.
Yeah,
you know, you have your workers and you have the people that sort of go above and beyond. The one sentence that I wanted to pull out of here from the author Sam Stone was, quiet quitting is the latest development in the broader struggle of workers facing career nihilism.
Career nihilism?
And if you're facing career nihilism, start asking the hard questions. Just like, I mean, they might not even be that hard.
You might be
just
in the
like,
wrong career.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our next most popular story this week. Solar tree can power your house and charge your EV. There's a new solar tree in the photovoltaic forest. The solar botanic energy tree is described as an, quote, aesthetically pleasing sculpture loaded with solar panels. The dome-shaped design is lined with thin film solar cells and generates 5 kilowatts of power. The electricity is directed into an energy storage system that can power a 4-person, 3-bedroom home. The company foresees a time when solar trees are installed in public spaces and parking lots to charge multiple EVs. The product launches in late 2023, and version 3.0 of the tree will use both solar and wind power and is expected to be available in 2025. Anna, that is a funny-looking tree.
I love it, though. It's so cute.
That's what we need. More adorable energy sources.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jeff, that's what I want to talk about today. That's why I brought you guys here today.
Adorable energy? We're rife.
So it's described as aesthetically pleasing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a lot of people in the comments that were like, this sucks. Like, it looks like a mushroom or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of cute as an option, but I do think like it really made me think like we really need to get away from this whole requirement of aesthetics for energy solutions. Like there's still like tons of subdivisions out there that don't allow people to put solar panels on their house because of aesthetic reasons. Like we don't have the luxury of doing that. Mm-hmm. This is very antiquated thinking. Like we don't have time. We are running out of time. Get out of the way. You know, if you look at the potential for solar power, we could cover just a tiny, tiny fraction of the Earth's surface with solar panels, and as long as we had the infrastructure to support it, and you know, we electrified everything and stuff, like we could. The sun would be enough to power the entire Earth, right? It's renewable, it's unlimited resource. Like we really got to get behind this. So, you know, this is the way forward. So I guess if people need it to look like a stupid tree in order to use it, then I guess, you know, but I'm really tired of like the pushback on that stuff. Like people saying solar's not, I don't know, not for them or whatever.
It's just a creative, I think, I like when industrial designers get creative with solar power, because solar panels are a pretty old technology at this point.
Right.
And I mean, they have the vision of seeing this, you know, seeing these outside of parks or in public spaces where people could, you know, plug into them. And I mean, I understand that, like, I mean, we all know when you drive by that solar farm. Like,
right.
I mean.
Well, and that's what I think works about this well. also because it's not subtle. It's very visible, and all these companies that are pushing their green initiatives and they're trying to reduce their carbon footprint as a marketing technique, because it's just what's expected at this point. This is great for those campuses where they're parking everybody's cars and stuff. I mean, it's a very visible way to say, look what we're doing to help fight the environmental and climate crisis. So maybe because it is a cute little forest tree or whatever, it'll
part of the photovoltaic forest.
That's right.
That was fantastic.
Thank you.
You just made up for all that other weird stuff you did at the beginning.
More weird stuff to come, Jeff. It does. I mean, I don't want to cut off your point, but it reminded me of something out of like Mario. It looked very
it's like
Nintendo 64 in terms of vibe. But you're right. Like I could see so many, especially in Silicon Valley. That's our solar tree forest over there.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a good idea. Jeff, your thoughts on what did you think of how the solar tree looked specifically?
I actually like it, and I think it's important, to be quite honest, because I think the biggest application of this is going to be parking lots, apartment complexes, things like that, because it provides shade, number one.
True.
And if it can hold up and handle the elements of the weather, so much better. I think about that a little bit here in Wisconsin, where we get some cold temperatures and things. You wonder how durable it can be.
Right.
But again, if this is the first one, obviously there's a way to upgrade that down the line. So I think the aesthetics, even though I was giving Anna a hard time about it, it's really important, because if you do want this out in public spaces, you need something like that there. So I think some of the things that also come to mind, is it going to be cost effective? I mean, Anna, you would probably have a better feel on this than I would, but I mean, if you're looking at panels enough to power a home, you're probably looking at an investment of like 10 to 15 grand, somewhere in there, maybe more. Yeah. So
it's a lot.
It's going to be expensive to
but
put
there's a tax credit, so
it's going to be expensive to put these out in mass.
Yeah.
So just the panel themselves, not including the aesthetics, the tree part of it.
Right.
So that could be a concern there. But I think one of the things that's also really great about this particular product is that it can also be plugged into a battery. So it becomes self-sufficient.
Right.
And we're taking some of that strain off the grid, which we've talked about. If we want this many EVs out there, we want all these electric cars, we want to take some of the pressure off the fossil fuel element, we're going to need something that can be independent and not rely on the grid, because it is dramatically under-resourced in terms of handling the projections and expectations and desires of growing the EV fleet. So something like this that can operate with a battery or even plug more energy back into the grid is a huge win.
No, talking about the battery in particular, it made me think, I mean, it was just a couple of months ago in June when we talked about the 400,000 Sun Villa solar patio umbrellas that were recalled after bursting into flames because the power source that they were charging maybe wasn't made as well as it was supposed to. So just make sure a product like this is market ready, because the last thing solar power needs is a bunch of solar trees bursting into flames.
Right.
They did look pretty
they look sturdy.
durable.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they look like they're using some pretty solid material.
Yeah, it didn't look like something that you bought at Costco. But I mean, talking about aesthetically pleasing, I mean, now that San Francisco has opened up so much more of that trash can budget, what if we peel some of that off? Stop with the trash cans.
Solar trees?
Solar trees. I mean, they don't need trash cans.
Solar
tree cans?
Solar tree trash cans.
Yeah, there you go. We'll just hang a bag from it. Anna, to your point about the comments, before we move on, Jay Underhill was the one who said, more like a mushroom than a tree. And he actually raised the same point. Good luck getting that past a homeowners association.
Yeah, but it just drives me nuts.
Well, not the comment, but the truth of it drives you nuts. Where somebody's trying to expand their house by a foot, and they can't get that approved by a homeowners association, just because they're that type of people.
Get over yourselves. HOA.
Right? Just because my lawn's more than 2 inches long. My goodness. All right. Mark ECD says, we will need some innovative panel cleaning tech.
For sure. Yeah. At least they're not that tall, so you could reach up there and probably scrape snow off and stuff. But you got to be really careful with those panels that you don't damage them. Could
we just repurpose window washers? Like I clean the trees?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. I think so. Just keep that kit in your car. All right. Thank you, Mark. Our next most popular story this week, Amazon's robot workforce could doom the American worker. In just 8 years, most humans have been replaced by machines in U.S. warehouses and factories. Millions of Americans are out of work and struggling to find jobs. This is the vision of Jason Boyce, author of The Amazon Jungle, and someone who spent 18 years as a top 200 Amazon seller. Amazon, or not Amazon, Boyce says automation could soon completely take over numerous industries. Using Proteus, Amazon's first fully autonomous mobile robot, as an example, Boyce says much of the company's workforce faces extinction by automation in the coming years. The author then calls on lawmakers to protect the human workforce before big tech behemoths like Amazon begin to phase them out. One step, he suggests, is a robot tax that would force companies to pay a fee every time they replace a human worker with an automated machine. Why is Amazon looking to automate? Well, Amazon is allegedly worried about running out of U.S. workers to hire for its warehouses as soon as 2024. And that could threaten service quality and growth plans. Also, robots can't unionize. Yet. They don't get injured, they don't demand better working conditions, and the company could write off the R&D expenses for developing the workforce. While Amazon employs 1 out of every 153 Americans, and as some experts say that automation could destroy up to 73 million jobs in the U.S. as soon as 2030. It's strong language like that just gets people moving on a robot tax.
I can't wait to see this robust robot union.
Mm-hmm.
They're really going to push people around.
Once they're sentient.
How are they going to hire a leader?
It'll be completely ones and zeros, man. The strongest will be the leader.
They'll be
But if they're robots,
they'll be self-aware by then.
Oh,
Jeff.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
There will be an alpha robot.
Yeah.
Alpha robot, yeah. And it'll definitely be one of those Tesla humanoid robots.
Yeah.
Oh, or the...
Seems to defy the logic of robots.
Yeah, but AI, Jeff.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Are you just dropping words now?
Haven't you read anything by Isaac Asimov? Nothing but disaster coming.
But you're leading the parade.
Doom, I think.
I'm excited to see it happen.
The word we're using,
Although
doom.
my kids will fall victim as a result. Now, I know that this article in particular covered a lot of ground. What were your initial reactions? Automation seems like something that's very clear-cut just going to happen, and this seems to be a little...
dramatic?
A little dramatic, yeah. Overly dramatic.
I agree, David. It's a bit overblown. And I say that because we've seen some very bold and broad predictions about a lot of things, such as this. Do you remember, the death of email?
Which one was the death of email?
There was
That happened 5 years ago.
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
I don't know. Did you miss it?
I
yeah.
did.
Okay. Yeah. Stop sending me emails. And then, the CEO of Lyft, I think, had predicted that no one would buy vehicles anymore after 2025.
Oh, we're getting there.
So that is tight. Yeah, that's coming up. I don't know. When people say this stuff, it gets headlines and fine. But we've been talking about this mass replacement of humans by robots for decades, and I don't really think it's different this time, especially when you use Amazon as an example, because Amazon is precisely the type of company who can and will apply broad tech-based efficiency technologies. But Amazon is not a typical American company. American manufacturing is comprised largely by small and mid-sized companies. The distribution industry is highly fragmented. Both of these industries are increasingly focused on build-to-order, customization, value-added. So this vision of an assembly line with monotonous, repetitive tasks, or a warehouse that's just pick and place and that's all you're doing, sure, there are plenty of these places, but they're not the bulk of jobs in this sector. And I do think robot usage is going to ramp up everywhere, like we've discussed. I think it's a great time, as we mentioned in weeks past, for companies to invest in that kind of tech because they can defend it. There's a worker shortage right now, so it's easy for them to bring in some automation and say, sorry, we can't fill the jobs. It kind of takes out some of that backlash component that I think holds companies back from making that investment. But I do think that the low-skill, repetitive type work that these robots are going to take on are also the jobs that don't pay well and are not being filled right now and people don't want. So I agree with some of the points that are being made about incentivizing job creation, but I don't think like de-incentivizing tech investments is the solution. I don't think that achieves your result, honestly, because I think some of this has a place in the industry covering those tasks, like I said, that humans increasingly just don't want to do.
Right. And Jeff, don't you think maybe the Amazons are leading the charge? But from what I heard, it sounds like a lot more small and mid-sized manufacturers are getting into robots and automation as a result of the worker shortage. And I mean, IMTS is coming up next week, and like 3 out of every 4 emails that I receive are all about robotics, automation, and automating the floor.
Yeah, demand's through the roof. I mean, I think it's the last 2 quarters in a row set new records for robotic shipments and deliveries here in the U.S. And I think it's great. It's a good thing. It's a positive thing. This article bothers me on a couple different levels. First of all, it's very narrow-minded in its perspective. Secondly, it's going to grab a lot of attention because of the headline and the way it's phrased. People are going to skim through these facts and not really get the real understanding of the situation. And Anna talked about, but just to offer a little bit more perspective, just a couple of different sites here. Zippia is like a recruitment, human resources, basically help you find a job type
like
of
Indeed.
website.
Okay.
Right. And they even said on there, they quote some of these stats about by 2025, robots are going to displace 85 million jobs, but kind of like what we talked about, they also say it's estimated that this change will also open up 97 million different jobs for humans because companies are going to be able to see the savings and the efficiency and apply that and say, hey, we don't have to worry about hiring people here. We can stick them here to make us more profitable. Very similarly, even the one of the places that was quoted in here was a report from McKinsey. They even state in this report, it's important to note, however, that when some tasks are automated, employment in those occupations may not decline, but rather workers may perform new tasks. And that's what we see typically in manufacturing.
Right.
Amazon, the reason they're running out of people to hire is because they do nothing to endear themselves to their current workforce or their future workforce.
Right.
Okay? We've covered all of the different safety issues, and even if it's not Amazon, warehouses are tough places to work. They typically don't pay as well as you would hope. They're dangerous, they're demanding, they're long hours. The seasonal work in there is really tough when it gets to be around the holidays. So you can understand and appreciate and really embrace and want there to be more automation and more robotics in those positions to, again, adjust to the evolving workforce and open up different opportunities for people. As far as this robot tax goes, are you kidding me?
Right.
This is one of the dumbest ideas I've ever heard.
Yeah. I mean,
this is ridiculous. How in the world are you going to get a manufacturer or Amazon or anybody else to say, hey, wait, come here. But just so you know, if you invest in too much like time and money saving automation and robotics, we're going to tax you. That's a big incentive, right? What's the first thing those companies are going to do? They're not going to build in your neighborhood. They're going to go someplace else. And if it becomes a national type of movement, they're just going to leave the U.S. and go someplace else. I mean, it could just be way, way more damage than any type of good.
Don't discount our government's ability to embrace a bad idea. In 2021 alone, there were 34,000 serious injuries reported on the job at Amazon. And to your point, Jeff and Anna, these are probably repetitive injuries that could be automated and no longer suffered by the workforce. And Jeff, I don't think a robot tax is completely ridiculous.
Yes, it is.
Because, well, I mean, sorry. It is ridiculous, but I don't think it's completely like out of the realm of possibility, because as soon as EVs and hybrids started being a thing and they governments felt threatened that they were going to lose on gas tax, we immediately got increases in EV and hybrid whatever they call like bonus taxes.
Yeah, that was the first thing I thought of also, actually.
Yeah, it was like, I was like, wait a second. I went and did what I was supposed to do by getting a hybrid, and the first thing the government did was like, thanks, we're going to charge you more money now. I was like, I don't know. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility.
But here you're risking losing infrastructure money. You're losing property tax money, everything else. You can't do something like this.
No, and maybe if it was more than, it's enough for people to think twice about it. Just like.
But what company is going to go to that area or stay in that area if they have to pay a tax for becoming more efficient?
Agreed.
But what about the doom?
They're doomed. They're doomed.
Do we have a dun-dun-dun in the studio, guys?
In a world.
All right, good.
What I think is ridiculous about this whole thing is that trusting that fees like that would be used to upskill or reskill workers. Again, I understand that, we're taxed enough already. Some of the comments on the site, automation comes down to a simple equation of productivity, and cost. People are, the one comment that I thought went too far was saying that people are doing this to themselves. But it makes sense that automation is a logical step for companies that are struggling to meet labor demands, like I said earlier. I don't think people are doing this to themselves. If anything, companies are maybe finally seeing the light.
It's the quiet quitters that are doing it to themselves. I think we pulled those two together.
You got to automate out the quiet quitter.
You do.
That's what cobots are.
Your unionized robot will never quiet quit.
I mean, that's actually pretty true, is that the quiet quitters are the reason we have cobots, because the quiet quitters need help machine tending. It's all coming together. It's all coming together.
But isn't a robot basically a quiet quitter right from the start? Because it's only going to do what it's programmed to do. It's never going to go above and beyond.
Yeah. Good point,
Man,
Jeff.
we shouldn't call these humanoid robots anymore. We should call them robot quitters. Quiet quitters.
And like the robot never brings anything into the office, like brownies or anything. Like
when's the last time you saw a robot bring in some snacks?
Mm-hmm. So we'll have to change. Oh man. I mean, there's got to be.
This just changed David's complete perspective on robots.
The fact that they won't bring snacks into the office, 100%.
No birthday donuts.
Yeah.
I mean, when is a robot's birthday? It's probably the manufacturer date, I assume.
There you go.
Yeah. You must.
Fusion.
Robot workers have to bring in snacks on their manufacture date.
Then you're back on board.
Yeah, Asimov's rule number 4.
Fixed it.
All right, we just need to change the title of that story now to Amazon's quiet quitter workforce of robots could doom the American worker. Now we're talking clickbait. All right. Our next most popular story this week. Farmers are ditching scarecrows for laser beams. Birds in California are causing farmers up to $4,000 in annual damage per acre. As a result, the scarecrow's days may be numbered because of the AVIX Autonomic Mark II autonomous laser system. Don't worry, we're not cooking birds in the air. The system transmits a Class 3B green laser light that the birds see as a solid object. When the laser is fired, they fly away because they feel threatened. The highly sustainable light can be programmed with 150 unique patterns, 2,400 individual waypoints, and 20 different time periods. With each pattern or waypoint potentially assigned a different time slot for continuous bird repulsion activities. According to Bird Control Group, the manufacturer, the laser can reduce bird damage by more than 70% without causing any harm to the birds or the environment. It's also programmed and monitored by a mobile app. There's an app for everything. The lasers can be installed and working within hours with a range up to 1,600 yards. The biggest obstacle? Cost. Most farms would need multiple lasers, and, Jeff, each unit costs more than $10,000. Where do you stand on laser scarecrows?
I am pro laser scarecrows. I am concerned about the cost.
Okay.
That was the first thing that hit me when I saw that. Except that was really cool technology, and I really love anything that is focused on helping the agricultural community. I think this is a sector that needs as much technological assistance as we can offer them. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, that's where everything starts, right?
Oh, yeah.
We're going to eat tonight. That's where it starts on the farm. Mm-hmm. So anything we can do to help these folks out, and this is primarily focused on produce farms, fruits and vegetables, things like that. Obviously, here in the Midwest, we've got a lot of cornfields, and we do have some fruit and vegetable production, not as much as probably out west, which is where this has become very, very popular. So I do see it as a huge benefit there. I also see, when we look at some of the spending, just IoT type technologies within agricultural, it's looking to increase by about $10 billion just in the next year, or decade, excuse me.
Oh, okay.
Next year.
It's a hot year.
Yeah. So it's about a almost 40% growth. So the spending is there. The more that we can give this community to pursue and implement to help their efforts, I think the better. We've seen a lot of other cool stuff come down the pike. Mm-hmm. Again, this one worries me from a cost perspective, but I do like the fact that it doesn't really have a huge environmental impact. It doesn't hurt the animals. It just scares them. It's a laser. And I don't know if you had a chance to watch the video, but I thought it was pretty crazy. Basically, they just kind of like shine the pointer on them and they just like scatter. It's kind of cool. So I liked it.
One of the questions I had, Jeff, was about they talk about animal safety, which, and I get it, just get that PETA rally cry going and you'll get this thing subsidized in no time.
Right.
But you have to take a little bit more care with like a class 3B laser. They can be hazardous to your eyes, and these are the lasers that were causing like flash blindness with not just pilots. As people were shining them at planes, but potentially could do the same thing with drivers. It's actually illegal to point any of these at any vehicle in motion. When you were covering the story, did they talk anything about that potential aspect or making sure it doesn't hit a human?
Yeah, so it's not a fixed point.
Okay.
It's constantly moving. That's the way it's programmed, so that it is in motion to constantly scare the birds so they don't get comfortable, basically.
Oh, and so you can kind of program it to like not go too much, like take an angle or
right. So
the
idea is that it's almost like kind of like scanning. It's in constant motion to keep them moving. It doesn't stay in one fixed point, which could cause a lot of those problems that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It also, there's no heat really involved with it, so you don't have to worry too much about that. Now, that said, it is a laser.
Yeah.
It is a bright light, so there are safety considerations 100%.
Yeah.
So I would think if you're working in that field, you probably want to shut it off for a little bit. You can also program it so it's not on constantly. If you do have a problem, it's usually a time of day or a certain area, so you can adjust appropriately to, nothing's idiot-proof. You can always find somebody who's going to hurt somebody. But
that's sort of like when we drive into my dad's farm, it is right on the highway, and so I see this thing scanning just right at the moment that I come over that hill, and I'm like, I'm blind! And the next thing I know, I'm like totally in the neighbor's farm.
You kind of hope the placement would be away from the highway in that instance.
Okay. And agreed. And do you think we have to worry about light pollution at all with a solution like this?
I don't know. I guess it would depend on the time of day that it's being used.
Yeah.
Are birds asleep at night? Does anyone know?
Just a constant laser light show.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I agree with Jeff. It is kind of cool because, anytime anything is relegated to pest status, I feel like, a lot of pest control is just killing that thing.
Yeah, poison it.
Yeah, exactly. Take it out. Whereas in this case, you're not doing that. Ask my husband about when we had a raccoon in our chimney and the procedure for getting that out without killing it was ridiculous.
What was the procedure?
They smoked it out. Yeah, they smoked it out with some predator pheromone to scare it.
Oh, so they didn't light a fire. They attracted it to
They scared it. Yeah.
Oh.
Scared it out and then.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And Chris was very patient about the whole process.
It took 3 days. He's just patient with me in general, but he does make fun of me for my tree hugging stuff. But anyway.
There was a quicker way to do that.
I know there's a quicker way. Yep. So the one thing that I thought about, though, when I was looking at this, and I did a little research online, which I know is not real research, but
oh man, just shot down everything I've done for the past 8 hours.
Your life's work. There's some scientific thought, I guess, on some benefits that birds can actually offer to agriculture in terms of how they reduce the amount of insect damage that occurs on crops. According to Science Daily, birds around the world eat 400 to 500 million metric tons of beetles, flies, ants, moths, aphids, grasshoppers, crickets, and other arthropods per year. The research highlights the important role birds play in keeping plant-eating insect populations under control, which I thought was interesting, and I wonder, does this mean that the farmers need to just rely on more pesticides to keep the insects?
No, they need tiny bug lasers.
Maybe we need to bring in the bug lasers. Yeah.
It's an amazing idea.
Yeah. Okay, so we solved it.
Yeah, done. They just
your internet research paid off.
It worked this time.
The internet solves problems.
We just need to make really tiny versions of this laser.
So I don't know if it says it's programmable. I'm guessing it doesn't get into the nuances of which birds are effective, how to target. You know what I mean? I'm sure not that, but that might be a helpful round two of this technology.
Going to David's point, I mean, you can always screw stuff up. Okay?
Yeah.
I think if you're using this smart, you're not necessarily chasing the birds off of your land. You're just making sure they're not consistently in one spot doing huge amounts of damage in that particular area.
So they can be around as long as they're not
They're not, making nests in your cornfield.
I see. Okay.
But I mean, it stands to reason that they could easily attach some sort of machine vision to this that could identify specific species of birds and chase them off.
True. Yeah.
Man.
Then that's going to price tags going to go up too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But I mean, if it's serving two masters.
Well, again, the thing that leads to the thing, right?
Yeah.
What do you think all those scarecrows are going to do now? Not a lot of.
Well, they're out of work, and there's no place in the warehouse for them.
I mean, you got like your corn mazes.
Yeah.
You've got your haunted houses.
I mean, Halloween still.
Yeah, that's
still
seasonal work, though.
Yeah.
I believe they joined their brothers in the March to Oz. I believe that's what they should do. Anna, any other breaking aphid research that you uncovered in your your crop pest research?
That is all I have on aphids for now. But
Okay.
I can get back to you in about 30 seconds.
Sounds good. Very good. Well, our most popular story this week: world's largest cruise ship to be sold for scrap. The world's largest cruise ship will be sold for scrap before it even gets a chance to set sail. The $1.4 billion Global Dream 2 was built to carry 9,000 passengers aboard its 20 decks. The boat is 1,122 feet long and was designed to include a movie theater and a water park. MV Werften was nearly finished building the vessel when it went bankrupt in early 2022. The ship has yet to find a buyer, and Anna, it needs to be out of a German shipyard by the end of 2023. Your thoughts on this massive, massive waste of time and resources?
Seriously. Full disclosure, I've never been on a cruise, but in the last week I've seen two separate cruise-related news items. One about a woman who was on a cruise and got bit by a shark, and the other about an Alaskan cruise that hit an iceberg and then water came flooding into people's cabins.
Which do you think is worse?
That's an old story. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, heard about that one. So
Go ahead. Which is worse?
I don't ever want to get on one of these boats. And like and like the norovirus thing that every couple of years they're like, look out.
Yeah.
The pukes are on every cruise ship. I just don't think that's for me.
That one is the worst.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But in the case of the Global Dream, you have to wonder kind of like what was going on with this company, which was like clearly in the depths of construction during the pandemic when it was unclear as to whether the cruise ship industry would survive. Like if anyone was ever going to get on a cruise ship again, because people were like, this industry is dead.
Yeah.
It's like investing in buffets at that time. That would be weird. Like everyone was just like, no on that.
Yeah.
But they still pushed ahead, and you wonder if they thought this was going to save them, maybe. But all signs in the past few years have really pointed to a lumpy future for the cruise industry. So I don't know. It's these like small logistical details, disrupted market conditions that just tend to lead to these giant wastes of money and time. And I don't know. In this case, a bankrupt company, you kind of wonder too, like how hard they tried to sell it. Because what do they care? It's just going to pay their debts off. So it could have been not a big effort on their part. But
no, agreed that after you watch a company go under, just how little is actually done to offload assets and, the actual market for people that will acquire those assets. At first I thought it was going to be this, almost like Storage Warriors or whatever the show is, Storage Wars type situation where there's a bankruptcy and all the assets are out there and people are shouting numbers and stuff. And really, if you're lucky to get like one or two bidders for each asset, you're doing better than most. Jeff, do you think it's possible that this company was just so far in that it's not like they could stop and recover by the time they went bankrupt?
A couple different economic factors, and then actually the design of the boat actually played a big part in why they could not resell it.
Okay.
So first of all, just looking at, we mentioned the cruise industry sort of falling off the table here. They had record numbers of $27.5 billion in revenue in 2019. 27.5. In 2020, that dropped to 3.3.
3.3 billion.
It's still
Yes.
higher than I expected.
Well, they
it to
had
be.
3 months.
Oh yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, true.
So from 27.5 to 3.3. 2021 up to 13. This year they're projecting just under 20. So it is coming back, but man, it took a huge hit. The company that was building this boat, obviously a big part of that. Now they did start building this in 2020. I don't know if it was when exactly. I couldn't find exactly when they started, but they did sell off a lot of their assets. They sold the actual port, the shipbuilding facility and everything they had. They showed that to Tyson Group, which is a big
ThyssenKrupp,
maritime construction design company. But they had trouble with this actual boat because it's supposed to hold 9,500 people, and what is it, just over 2,500 rooms, I believe. So that's, if you do some quick math, that's 3 to 4 people per room. That's sort of a tradition. That's something that the Asian culture is very comfortable with, having that many people in a room. When you start positioning that to other areas of the country, the biggest cruise ship out there, you're looking at about, let's see, it was something like a 2.1 people per room.
Oh, okay.
So the fact that you had to put more people in each room in order to accommodate it, it just,
Doesn't
there's a lot of
translate,
people
yeah.
did not
Yeah.
like this. So that's why they had trouble building it. There's also like selling
Selling
it.
it.
There's also still like $350 million worth of work to do on the thing. So they were able to, whoever it was that took receivership of all their assets, they were able to sell like the shipbuilding facility, which saved like 2,000 jobs, which was a positive thing. But yeah, this boat had 0 takers because they still would have had to finish it, and it just wasn't a good fit for any place outside of Asia.
Well, I saw that the shortfall on the budget, they only have $200 million more work to do.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yeah. I mean, just
You
another.
should buy it.
Then
I
That's
mean,
not that
maybe
much.
not me, but there's
Yeah.
got to be.
we were looking at buying that old duck, that old Wisconsin
Yeah.
duck. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, this could just be the next step.
That was, we
old
could have a whole
duck.
fleet. We could have the 1970 duck and then the Global Dream 2, state of the art. The Global Dreams 2's sister, the Global Dream, is also on the market, but that one actually might get sold. It's not going to be sold for scrap yet. But, I mean, all of this needs to happen soon because, Jeff, as you said, it was sold to ThyssenKrupp's naval unit, and they're going to use it to build military vessels, and they got to make some room. Did you guys look at the photos of this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Crazy.
Like,
the water park on there?
yeah, because it's in the water, and so there isn't a lot of scale. And then you see the tugboat
Yeah.
that looks like a matchbox car up against a semi. It is just
Well, it looks like a container ship. I mean,
Yeah.
just like everything is stacked up. It's
yeah.
crazy.
It was and I don't know, Jeff. Have you ever been on a cruise? I haven't.
No,
No, it's
just the one, just around Lake Mendota.
yeah.
About it.
I've done a fair amount of booze cruises, yes.
Yeah.
But no, I won tickets. Well, I didn't win them. I did one of those timeshare things.
Of course you
to
did.
get. Well, I found it interesting. You know, I
We
wanted
actually
to
had a job.
I was like, how did they do this? And then I went in and almost bought a timeshare, but had free tickets to go on a cruise. And then the timeshare company went under. It's ridiculous.
Anna, did you think this was going to start out as when I was working on a cruise ship
Exactly, I know.
for 2 months?
No, I mean, I had that one.
David's had every job in the world for
He was
2 months.
Gopher from the Love Boat.
No, I had an opportunity to be Jiminy Cricket on a Disney one, but I didn't take it.
Wow.
I would have made a fine cricket. Back, it was a different waistline back
Pre-beard?
then. Yeah, pre-beard. Get on! No, I'd be one of the scary donkey kids in Pinocchio now. All right, well, before we move on to In Case You Missed It, we have another word from our sponsor.
Manufacturers are facing extraordinary challenges today. With labor shortages, supply chain disruptions, and a changing workforce, complex industrial technology doesn't cut it on the front line. What's needed is a new way of working that will not only meet throughput goals, but change the shop floor culture to one of winning, where every worker feels they play a part in achieving the company's goals for success. What's needed is Red Zone, the connected workforce solution.
And we're back. And before we start with In Case You Missed It, the stories that weren't as popular on the website but do still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward, we have another word from Red Zone. Just remember that Red Zone's connected workforce software solution enables manufacturers to empower frontline teams in production, maintenance, and quality to contribute their full potential and achieve company goals around productivity and throughput. Red Zone software enables manufacturers, big and small, to boost their plant's productivity, increase employee engagement, and lower turnover.
I would like you to take a William Shatner take on that.
Take a shot at it?
Next time. And
Red Zone. Connected workforce software solution enables manufacturers to empower frontline teams in production. You got it.
I didn't mean right now.
Oh, okay. No, cut her short. I'll do my Nimoy next week. All right. Now, in case you missed it, I think I'm going to go first here. I have an electric spoon that lightly shocks you to make food taste saltier. We've talked about the work coming out of Dr. Homei Mayashida's laboratory in Japan before. The lab is behind the Taste the TV, or TTTV Lickable TV, and they also did the electric tongue, the lickable taste gadget that you got to plug in and then stick on your tongue and taste different things. Well, now, Kieran Holdings is collaborating with the lab and has designed a spoon and bowl combination that uses weak electric currents to make food taste saltier. It boosts the perceived saltiness of foods by 1.5 times. The spoon has 4 different levels of flavor intensity and works in concert with the bowl. The electric current is delivered to the food when the user holds the bowl in their hands. The company plans to test the electric salt devices starting this month, and it could be commercially launched in Japan by next year. Now, I liked the story because, unlike the lickable TV abomination or the sort of gadgety, lickable electric tongue, this is something where there's a severe problem with sodium intake everywhere, and in the event that this is viable, could be a potential solution. I mean, as long as you're cool eating your rice with a battery. No?
Yeah, this does not appeal. Even though I would agree it's good to reduce the salt, which I am hugely guilty of, definitely pouring on the salt shaker, but I don't think I can make this leap.
I mean, as a person who has tried that sad potassium salt, and it just doesn't work. I'd rather it be bland. I'm willing to try an electric spoon. Not in front of my kids, just in case God help.
You're going to try this?
I mean, I will definitely try this. Like Jeff, I'm guilty where it's just needs flavor. It needs a handful of salt, and then we'll see about the butter.
This is ridiculous.
Ow!
You're going to put this
sensible solution.
This is going to be
this electric shock fork into your mouth?
Weak electric shock. It's subtle.
What a time to be
When
alive.
you are dining on David's Cruise Line,
Yeah.
there will be an electric spoon.
Of course. Only for the mid to high tier patrons.
Oh.
Do you guys remember, it was at CES maybe 8 or 10 years ago, they first revealed this fork that was designed for weight loss, and it would vibrate if you ate too much or too quickly. This reminded me of that. And at the time, I felt like that was pretty condescending and weird, but I still feel that way, I guess, now that we're talking about this.
You did use condescending and weird to describe it, so you're still...
I mean, that one's still pretty bad. That one's still pretty bad. Instead, why can't it just shout, "Put me down"?
Is this better than that? Because you want to buy this, it sounds like.
I do. Well, no, I don't want to buy it. I would definitely be interested in testing it, because if it does give you the sensation of salt being on your food without ingesting extra sodium, I think that could be a benefit.
That's true. Or you could just 3rd degree burn your tongue, and then you won't taste anything, and then you won't want to eat any of this stuff. That's another way.
That is, a potential benefit as well.
Doesn't this seem like these are weird ways?
This does seem weird, yes. I mean, it doesn't seem like the quickest route to the solution, I feel like this is a workaround.
We can't regulate the food industry at all.
No, yeah.
But we will come up with a way to electric shock your face.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'll give it a chance. That's all.
Whatever, David.
Yeah. Anna, clearly against the electric spoon. In case you missed it this week?
All right, so Jeff, someone in California is listening to the podcast because they want to grant your biggest wish of all time, which is to give Tesla's full self-driving feature a new name.
Oh.
I don't know if you saw the story, but
Did they say what they want to call it?
So, no, they haven't. So the term full self-driving is being challenged in California by lawmakers who recently passed a bill that could ban the software's name. So according to the LA Times, the California DMV rules don't allow the advertisement of cars as self-driving if they do not have the capability. The legislation would make such regulation a state law, but it says that it will be up to the DMV at that point to enforce it, and they have not commented to this point on the bill. However, when the bill was gaining momentum in July, the article says that the DMV did file an administrative action against Tesla on false advertising. And last month, the DMV told the LA Times that it would request Tesla be required to educate drivers about full self-driving capabilities. The DMV would not comment on whether Tesla would be able to continue using the term. So there's two things in play here right now, which is, will this term be allowed to be used going forward? And then secondly, will Tesla have to train drivers on what full self-driving is and how to use it? This could be the start of something, maybe. If they have to change the name, obviously they'll change it to FSD or something, right? But it sounds like a small thing, but as we've discussed in the past, and I know you got pretty heated about it last time we talked about this, but like that name is
the problem.
It's a problem, yeah. It's not. I mean, it's giving people a false sense of what this does. It's got huge ramifications. Driver complacency being like the least, but at the worst of it, misuse, negligence. Like this is causing deadly accidents. And, I think like requiring Tesla as well to educate drivers on full self-driving is clearly necessary based on what we've seen. And Tesla should get on board with that, I think, because as Jeff also pointed out recently, these accidents are not doing any good towards endearing people to this technology, which we know a lot of people are very skeptical about using it. There's going to be a struggle with user adoption, and I think, why don't you try to stop that slide by fixing this problem now and then getting this into the mainstream when people understand it, Well,
there's got to be like some false marketing claims that come into play here too, because you're not being truthful in what it really is. What I kind of wonder is, Musk is so confrontational about everything, and he stands up to people like the SEC and other regulatory bodies. What's he really going to do to the California DMV? I mean, is the California DMV going to have to get like their own muscle in there to go down to Fremont and knock on the door and be like, this needs to change. Yeah. We're going to watch you while you change the verbiage on your websites. Yeah. How are they going to have enough muscle to, I guess, make him change? Yeah. Because he's like a little kid.
You make a good point about, remember when all those automakers were sued when the listed miles per gallon, it never, like EVs and hybrids never hit that, and they all got sued for false advertising? And that seems like way less than calling it full self-driving. But I guess it's an actual metric. Anna, when you talk about Tesla having to train it or increase awareness as to what full self-driving really means. Yeah. I just picture like, all right, let's go for the test drive. And you jump in, you're like, boom, full self-driving, we're going for it. And it's like, whoa, 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 you got to pay attention. Like, get on there. Like, it would be a definite, maybe negative hit when you're taking that test drive and just like, well, what do you mean I have to pay attention? Jeff, what is your in case you missed it this week?
All right, went a little bit different route than you guys. I picked a story talking about the Navy wanting a destroyer with lasers and hypersonic missiles.
Two laser stories this week.
Big surprise, right? They want the big bad weapons on here. I thought this was interesting for a couple reasons. Number one, we've talked about both of these technologies from a military weapons applications before. The hypersonic missiles obviously extend the range from how far away you can defend and attack. But a lot of this stems from really two different things. Number one, the threat that China presents right now, and a lot of the concern throughout the armed forces, but especially the Navy, is really taking in potentially getting ready for a conflict in that part of the world, where you're talking about a lot of water, a lot of islands, definitely a lot of maritime activities there. The other thing is they're really coming off of a stretch where they struggled mightily, the Navy did, in terms of designing high quality, or I should say ships didn't have as many issues that were popping up. Electrical issues, we did a lot of stuff on fires that were happening on board naval ships. The maintenance and upkeep on them that was really complicated and expensive. So they're trying to get not only these upgraded ships that have better weapon systems, but are also just designed better. Now, one of the sticking points is the fact that these are going to be about $800 to $900 million more than the current fleet. So we're looking at like $3 billion for these new DGG class destroyers. So that price point means they would be good to allocate one of these a year. So it's going to take a while to turn the fleet over. Now we're looking at ships that last 20 years. But if they want to progress on this, it'll be interesting to see, can they do this without rushing through and creating some of the same quality control issues they've had in the past? What type of resources are going to be made available in terms of how big of a threat is China, and is this really the antithesis of what's going on here and going to push that forward? Or is this going to sort of fall back into the typical military allotment process in terms of how quickly these ships are put out there? These weapon systems, too, I think it'll go a long way in determining where we start and how they progress. We did a ton of stuff on the railgun. Those were naval guns. Those are naval weapons. Got so far, and we scrapped it for a lot of this hypersonic stuff that's coming out now. So the Navy really seems to be at the forefront of a lot of these new weapon systems. So they'll be leading the charge in both of these areas, which will be interesting to watch.
Man, that railgun just remains a very popular story. Did you mention who got the first design contracts? Like, it's General Dynamics and Huntington Ingalls Industries. And I don't know as much about Huntington, but like General Dynamics, they get a lot of military contracts and seem to have a legacy of, higher quality stuff. I don't know. That's just my impression.
Yeah, Huntington Ingalls does a lot of the finishing work. Like, they're the ones that launch.
Oh, okay.
So it will be interesting to see how this goes. Again, the amount of money they get and the time period that they're looking to get it done in.
Yeah. And I was surprised that Jeff picked that story.
I know. He's never interested in military stuff.
Way out of character.
Yeah.
I went through a whole time talking about the Navy, and I didn't bash him that much once.
There we go.
Do you want to do it? Do you want to do it now?
It was subtle enough.
No.
I'll do it.
Is that your final thought?
No. It's funny how they were like vowing that they're not going to have the same problems that they've had so many times, time over time, with like cramming in lots of tech and spending a ton of time and money on these. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll take your word on that, I guess.
We promise we're going to do it right this time.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see it we'll believe it when we see it. Yeah. All right. Well, before we get out of here this week, let's move on to our final thoughts. Anna, what do you got for us for a final thought this week?
Sure. So I'm going to my first trade show next week since 2019. Ooh. So I will be sweating it out at IMTS next week. I see if I remember how to do it. I don't know. The shoes. The shoes. That stuck with me. So if anyone's at IMTS, we have some interviews that we're doing on the show floor about the podcast, actually. Yeah. We have a lot of booth meetings, but shoot us an email if you want us to stop by wherever you are, and we'll try to do that.
Yeah. Anna, you and I will be at the show Monday and Tuesday, and then our associates, Nolan and Ben Munson, will be covering the show on Wednesday. And, we're meeting with a lot of people, very interested in meeting with more. If there are any listeners out there that are going to be at the show and want to hook up, that would be cool.
If you wear a T-shirt to IMTS, we will physically put another T-shirt on top of it.
I was thinking we should bring T-shirts to IMTS.
We should.
Just, I will work on the shirt cannon, see if we can get that in the door.
We have a cannon.
We can make one. I've got a potato gun. We could probably retrofit that.
Make one.
Weekend project.
Nah, just like
T-shirt cannon.
You bring the hairspray, I'll bring the lighter and the PVC.
Why would I have the hairspray? That's a stereotype.
Oh, I just was asking. I figured we'd share the load. You can bring the
Okay. You bring the hairspray.
But we're doing a live podcast at the IMTS Creators Lounge, I believe at 1 p.m. on Monday.
1 p.m.
So if you're anywhere near the Creators Lounge, come and check us out. In case you missed it, or that was previous segment.
There you go.
We're on final thought
You're
now.
on it.
Yep. See, I click away from the notes from 1 minute, and I'm just gone. Jeff, one of my first final thought, there are several, was that last week you had talked about Tesla's investment, right? Just get a couple of black shirts.
Yeah.
And so I was listening to it. I just wanted to run some numbers. So Tesla has about 99,920 employees as of the end of 2021. So if you get a good deal on black T-shirts, which you could get about, for $2.71. $2.71.
I know,
You did some math. It was weirdly specific. terrific.
They have 100,000 factory employees?
I just went total employees, so I didn't know factory workers. I didn't get that breakdown. But times 5 equals about $13.55 per employee, or only about $1.35 million total. So what you were guessing, it was going to be like $5 million. For 1.3, everyone's got a black T-shirt, even probably office workers.
Nice.
You know, I didn't do the buttons. I wanted to look at button cost. My other final thought was that other than going to IMTS next week, I went to a fair for the first time last weekend, and got a chance to remember all of the glory that is a county fair, all the inherent dangers and messes and glorious food items. I lived it all, and if you got time, I know that Labor Day is traditionally the end of the season of those, at least in Wisconsin, but man, it was glorious. And it turns out Des, our oldest, is an adrenaline junkie.
You love the rides, huh?
He loved the rides, and there were two in particular that I went on with him. One was the Sizzler, which is where it has like the 3 different prongs with 3 different cars, and they're all spinning at the same time. Oof. And he's great at it. It turns out, I mean, maybe my fortitude is not the same as it used to be when I was
never good with those.
No, it was.
Oh, really?
I used to and I still enjoyed it, but it was kind of funny because all the bars popped open and the kids jumped out, and then all the dads were just like, "I need a minute."
Yeah.
The guy came in and he's like, "You got to get off." It's like, if you touch me, I will fall over. And the other that we went on was the giant slide. You're in the potato sack.
Yeah.
And as we're walking up, I'm like, Des, we might get moving on this thing. And you go over 3 or 4 humps, and by the second hump, we were already catching a little air, and I just grabbed onto him.
Oh, God.
And by that last hump, he completely flew off of me, and I just grabbed him back. I burned the heck out of my arms, just trying to keep a big enough surface for him to fall on. Still a lot of fun.
I remember those slides. Those were kind of crazy.
Oh,
they were
man.
fun though.
And the guy just gave me a grin when I got up there. He's like, I'm like, all right, I know. You're timing me to see how fast I get down there. But it was a good time. And, still coming out of the pandemic, it's nice to get back to any sort of normalcy. Carnies are the same. Oh, the other thing, Jeff, how much do you remember the duck game?
Yeah.
Yeah. How much do you think they want for that duck game now? To pick 2 ducks out of blue water, blue liquid. We'll call it blue liquid.
I'm afraid that, $3, $4?
$10.
Whoa.
$10 to go. And I would already got Des all keyed up. I'm like, we're going to go do the duck game because I know you win a prize no matter what. And then I was just like, let's get it. Get him a duck. How much? And he told me $10. I'm like, maybe we'll go and buy more tickets for the rides.
What was the prize?
The prize was one of those stuffed animals you get out of a claw machine. It's his new favorite thing now.
Yeah.
It's the green sloth of happiness. But then, of course, the brothers got to do it.
Sloth.
Yeah.
Alex's favorite animal.
He loves sloths, particularly green ones. And they're tiny little hands. And then Caden came away with a tiny giraffe, and it was great, but my goodness.
Yeah. Good time.
Yeah. Jeff, what is your final thought this week?
So, I don't have to tell you guys this, but our readers, listeners are pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah.
They've had some just amazing feedback. One of the things I asked for was some ideas for stuff to throw on the grill.
Oh,
nice.
We got an actual comment with people I think it's Seth in our Today in Manufacturing swag.
Yes.
Yeah, all right, Seth.
Looking good.
See, it's out in the wild. It's getting out there. It's circulating.
Well,
looking good, Seth.
The next person that's going to have a t-shirt and hat is Zach, because he sent in some ideas for helping me with remodeling the kitchen. Different ideas, things to eat. So one of his was, he said, instead of frozen pizzas, if you lower the heat and use a cookie sheet, you can do homemade pizza on the grill.
Oh.
So, if you guys are up for it, I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
And I'll bring it in.
Yeah.
We can try Zach's idea.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how it's going to go, because we're going dough on a cookie sheet.
That sounds great.
We'll see what happens.
We wouldn't get this with the robot workforce.
We wouldn't.
No.
There would not
so
be.
Zach, thank you for that. We got some stuff coming out to you, and we'll try your pizza idea here next week on the show.
Oh, as soon as next week?
Yes.
That's great.
We also had some great comments to the trivia question, just to recapture what that was. Which of the following do you feel will have the biggest long-term impact? The choices were the first solar panel factory, the new factory and the expansion, the labor board ruling against Tesla, Vision Marine's electric boat shattering the speed record, Ford EV battery prices driving up the cost of their vehicles, and then the TransPod FlexJet above ground 600 mile per hour pod self-enclosed transportation option.
Hyperloop.
So I just want to go through some comments here, some really cool comments. First one, Mark Waterman.
Oh, yeah.
Your guy, David, said right now the decarbonization and power generation are the most critical risks to U.S. manufacturing and the comfort and freedoms of the American public. So solar will have the highest long-term impact. Energy costs and availability affects food production and availability, transportation, industrial manufacturing, and the ability to work and play somewhere farther away than walking distance. A lot of great comments. A lot of great thoughts there. I want to share that one.
Mark always kills it.
Another one came in from Carl. He said Vision Marine will have the most impact as it could remove a large amount of CO2 from the atmosphere. He said the flux will have huge infrastructure hurdles to overcome, so probably decades before it could be up and running. Yeah. So he was all about the
but he's not saying
the fast boat.
He's not saying it's not going to happen.
Mark Cressley, another somebody who chimes in quite a bit. He says that he's referring to the Ford EV battery cost increase. He said this is the most significant long-term impact as the issues Ford is facing are significant material and cost increases, continued strain on key supply chains, and rapidly evolving market conditions. It's going to be the same for all electric vehicles, and this will greatly hinder the conversion rate to electric. So good points. The winner, I guess you could say, or the most popular response from our poll was, do you guys have a guess?
I want it to be the Hyperloop. Anna?
Labor board?
It is the Ford EV battery price increase was the most popular response in the poll. So thanks for everybody who submitted their answers. We'll get you some stuff out. The question for this week, and this was tough because I wanted it to be stuff related to the podcast, and these were all over the place. So it was kind of tough to find some common ground, so I went a little bit different route. So the question is, which of the following topics have we discussed on the podcast the most in the last year? Okay. So we're talking about non-safety related workplace dynamics. So like we were talking about quiet quitting. We've talked a lot about remote work. We've talked about the Great Recession, or the Great resignation, all of those types of things. So non-safety related work dynamics. Second option would be developments and innovation related to solar power. We talked a lot about that. Industrial robots and cobots, again, kind of hitting on the Amazon story there. Laser-based technology, we've talked a lot about weaponry and lighting and a bunch of different things there. Or maritime vessel activity. We've covered a lot of stuff with container ships, accidents, things like that. So let us know on the poll which of those you think we've discussed the most in the last year. If we read your comments, we will send you out some stuff and keep it going. The response to these poll questions have been awesome. The comments have been great too, and I think they've been even I think a different tone than we see on the website, because on the website you do have to worry about people kind of jumping back at you, whereas this is more conversational, so people are taking more time to express a lot of stuff, and it's been awesome. So thank you guys so much for that.
And hopeful. You know? So the question is, which of these topics have we talked about the most on the podcast?
Yes, over the last year.
Oh, okay. Very good. I want it to be lasers.
Well, twice today we talked about lasers, so that kind of tipped the
It's up 2-0.
Tipped the scales.
That's right.
2-1, not all of them.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at iant.com with email the podcast in the subject line. Also, make sure to email us if you're going to be at IMTS, so we can stop and say hi. You can also subscribe to our daily and weekly newsletters, and make sure that you get the podcast delivered to your inbox first. All right, for Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we'll see you next week.